Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our talk about WFH, working from home. I'm Cindy Edgerly, Clinical Director and co-founder, along with Molly Schneider, of Well Together, a coaching and therapy practice dedicated to your wellness. While some of us already were working from home prior to the pandemic, most of us had to make an abrupt transition to remote work last spring. And while we likely assumed that it would be temporary, and it was even welcome at the time, for many of us, remote work has presented challenges as well as benefits. Today, we'll discuss the pros and cons of remote work, as well as some strategies to handle the challenges and maximize the benefits. There we go. So first, just some of the statistics. As of December, a survey out of Business Wire told us that 42% of Americans are currently working remotely. And the data suggests that remote work is here to stay, with 27% of people planning to continue working remotely throughout 2021. Additionally, by the year 2025, 22% of workers will be remote. So first, we'll talk about some of that employers and employees are getting quite comfortable with remote work, and it looks like it's here to stay. A study from July out of HR Drive reports that 80% of companies want to continue offering some form of work from home post the pandemic. 96% of employees want to do some form of remote work, and whether that's full or hybrid. It may be sometimes you're at home, some days you're at work, but some, at least partially, some remote work during the week. And this is interesting. 27% would rather take a 10 to 20% pay cut than return full-time to in-person work. And we know that 81% of employees feel more loyalty to their employer when they're offered flexible options like remote work. So some of the benefits I thought we could talk about. First, starting with the personal benefits. No commute, obviously, means more time with our families. There's some evidence to suggest that people who work from home enjoy better mental health as well as physical health. That probably relates to some of the perks of working from home, like more time to sleep, more time to exercise, and prepare healthier meals instead of grabbing a quick lunch out or while sitting at your desk. And the comforts of home. We hopefully have a comfortable work environment. We get to say a quick hello to our family during the day. Maybe we have our pets around us, which can be comforting. And finally, there's lots of evidence, as we talked about before, that people are happier when they're working from home. So increased job satisfaction is an important one as well. Now, for some of the professional benefits of working from home, well, some of us would say we have more focused time, fewer interruptions, quieter workspace, maybe not being involved in office politics is a plus for some of us, if that's an issue where you work. Higher productivity, I thought this was quite impressive. 35 to 40% higher productivity rating than in-office counterparts. So people working from home are getting a lot more done. And again, happier employees, with 81% reporting more job loyalty. And then some of the practical or societal benefits of working from home. Obviously, we're saving money, not spending it on gas and car maintenance. Very environmentally friendly. We are, not contributing to the traffic and the pollution, and we can live anywhere, especially if we're doing full-time remote work. I have friends who work for Google who left their home in San Francisco and are now living in Hawaii. And we've all heard many stories about the mass exodus from some of the major, more expensive cities for other, maybe more enjoyable places like Hawaii. And now for the challenges of working from home, I just want to say lack of preparedness, expectations of it being short term, and of course, pandemic related stressors, I think have all likely contributed to and compounded the challenges associated with working from home. And I've categorized the challenges into personal and professional areas. And then I'll offer some strategies to address each of them, some of the major themes we have seen in terms of the personal level are loneliness and isolation, of course, and trouble with defining home and work life boundaries. Obviously, the loss of the daily interaction with our colleagues can lead to feelings of isolation, but even the seemingly insignificant things like the brief social interactions we have, maybe with the barista when we stop for coffee on our way to work, or chatting with the security guard in the parking lot, we're getting deprived of those connections and interactions that actually contribute to our sense of connectedness and ultimately our happiness quite a bit more than we even realize. And then separating work from home life. So this refers to not only the physical separation, like having a separate office space, but also the mental separation. The lines between work and home can get blurred, and some of us may be working longer hours or be expected to, or expecting ourselves to be available, 24/7. And even things like interruptions from your family or your pets or the neighbor's lawnmower can be an issue regarding home and work life boundaries. And some of the professional challenges, it can definitely make it more difficult to work collaboratively. There's no doubt that connecting and collaborating isn't as easy as when we're in the office and can simply stroll down the hall um, to a coworker's office and talk about a project or check in about a deadline. And motivation can be difficult. We may feel less motivated or energized when we're not working side by side with our industrious colleagues. And it may be difficult to get ourselves organized, to follow a schedule, things like that. Zoom fatigue, we've all heard that probably a lot lately. It's very real, that feeling of being drained after a Zoom meeting or a day full of Zoom meetings when, it's very different from sitting in a room with a group of people. When you're on the camera in a Zoom meeting, you feel like you have to be really on, and eye contact is an issue. And if you look away, you feel like that's much more noticeable. And so it's, communication is a little bit more difficult over Zoom. Zoom, it takes a lot more mental energy, I think, in a Zoom meeting than it does in a personal meeting. And then, of course, technology, what we use at home is usually or could be much more inferior to what we have access to in the office. And now for some solutions. There we go. So, with regard to solutions, before we get there, though, I just want to point out that as with anything, forming good, healthy habits requires planning, intention, practice, and encouragement, and sometimes reassessing and changing what we're doing. And an important part of this is being really self-aware, paying attention to what you're doing, how it feels, how it's working for you. It means being intentional about your day and taking control of it rather than letting the day happen to you. And ultimately, you have to see what works best for you. One size definitely doesn't fit all. So, with regard to the challenge of, the social isolation of working from home, be intentional about your social time. Some people are building time into or around their meetings for social connection. You can suggest virtual lunches together to feel more connected, maybe a virtual happy hour at the end of the week, and make it count. This is where mindfulness kind of plays in here. Really, when you're having those experiences, that social connection, savor it, enjoy it, be really present, and you'll get much more out of it that way. Now, for attaining a good balance between work and home life, get dressed for work. It seems like a simple thing. And of course, we love being in our comfy clothes, and you don't necessarily need to get dressed up as you might to go into the office. But changing your clothes for work helps kind of change your mindset and helps you differentiate between work and home. And it can also give maybe your family members a visual signal that you are in work mode. And workspace and boundaries. So, if possible, obviously a separate room for your office is great. Not everyone has that luxury, but partitions and headphones can work well when you have to share space. And making sure that your space is comfortable. Again, I know some of us we transitioned to working from home pretty abruptly and didn't necessarily set up our workspace for the long term. And if you haven't yet, then it's definitely advisable to do so. Make it, physically comfortable, aesthetically pleasing. That will definitely help. And in terms of a schedule, set a schedule for yourself. You're not punching a clock, but you can set a schedule and make sure to schedule breaks. Breaks are important. We all need to refuel, recharge. We get more done when we take breaks. If you have a family, pre-establish your availability. Um, this may mean planning times with your spouse when you're each available to help children with school if that's needed, or if you're going to, who needs to walk the dog and when. A pre-established schedule can actually, it sets up expectations and helps prevent, frustration and possible arguments. But do be flexible. These are uncertain times for everyone, and flexibility is definitely needed. Transition activities. So this is a really important form of self-care, and it can be something like taking a walk, around your neighborhood before beginning work. And it could be stretching or meditating or calling a friend during breaks from work. Anything that refreshes and resets is helpful, but see what works best for you. Just in general, try to avoid screens if you can. And we talked about collaboration, and it can be challenging when working from home, but take advantage of some of the technology out there. Slack and Huddle can be great for connecting, keeping in touch. If there's a small group that you're working closely with on a project, you could schedule a few mini meetings throughout the day. So rather than sitting on one long meeting, twice a week, schedule mini check-in meetings throughout the day. It helps you feel more connected and helps with collaboration. And this is something I like to call a virtual cubicle. So you can establish this where you may have a few colleagues that either you enjoy being around or you are working closely together. You could decide to be on a Zoom or other type of of call with or without your camera on, but keep the call going throughout the day so that, if something comes up, you can talk. You almost feel like you have someone who's there with you. Identifying maybe a work buddy that you have lunch with, you know, every day or a few times a week, or someone you can chat with before or after meetings, as you might have done in the office, can be helpful. So, with motivation, one of the things that's really helpful is figuring out your work to rest ratio. 45 minutes of really focused, intense, uninterrupted work, followed by a 15-minute break. As I said, the breaks are really important. They do help you be more productive. And you just have to figure out what your sweet spot is. Maybe you work for an hour and you take a 10-minute break, or, just pay attention, figure out what works for you, and go with it. Minimize interruptions. So, sometimes placing a sign, if you have your own office in the house, placing a sign on the door so people know not to come in or not to make noise near your door can be really helpful. Turning off non-work related notifications, like social media, and getting organized, and trimming the fat. So using daily checklists, prioritizing, eliminating any unnecessary work. Remember, we're all kind of dealing with a lot right now. We're fatigued, and whatever, work can be eliminated is, now is the time to do that. Maybe there are certain meetings that you don't really have to attend that you could skip. Um, and let's get to Zoom fatigue. So it's wise to avoid screens when possible. And avoiding multitasking is really important, because I know it's tempting, if you're in say you're on a Zoom call, and you figure, well, I can catch up with my email, I'm just listening. But transitioning from one screen to another is definitely going to increase your fatigue. Um, so that isn't helpful, but resting your eyes whenever possible, makes a big difference. And turning off your camera if you can. Again, the whole idea behind Zoom fatigue is that because our cameras are on, there's more, we feel more pressure to be on, to appear on. And it's part of what makes us so exhausted after a day full of Zoom meetings. So if there's something that you can kind of establish with your coworkers ahead of time, saying, sometimes I'll have my camera off, or I'll be looking away, and it's not that I'm not paying attention, I'm just trying to rest my eyes. So, things that you can establish ahead of time are really helpful. And with regard to technology issues, I can't help you. I'm sorry. That's not my area, but I'm sure you have someone that can. I had just wanted to identify that as a challenge. Sorry, I can't be of help with any of that. But basically, this is not a one size fits all. And even the same person may have different needs at different times. So being mindful, self-aware, and intentional is key to dealing with some of these challenges. Laurie Santos, who is a prominent Yale professor and created um, the happiness course at Yale, that's very well known and well regarded. She tells us that our brains often feed us the wrong information about what makes us happy and lead us down the wrong path. So while we may, find it appealing and be tempted to scroll through our Instagram or our Facebook feeds when we're on a break, we may not be getting the rest, that we actually need. So mindfully paying attention to how you feel about something, you know, how you felt doing it. Was it relaxing, re-energizing? Was it enjoyable to scroll through Twitter during your lunch hour, or did you feel bad afterwards? Perhaps you'd prefer to sleep an extra 45 minutes instead of using that time to exercise. Find what works for you. Maybe you prefer teleconferences to Zoom calls. Um, Notice and pay attention to your reactions and your responses and pivot when needed. Listen to yourself and change when you need to. So, thank you so much for listening and watching today. We do have a great PDF that we can share with you from of tips to help with dealing with some of the challenges of working from home. Just message us or leave a comment down below. We would love for you to subscribe. We always love to hear and connect with you. So thank you. And as always, be well.